the sixth snowiest April on record for the Fargo-Moorhead area, having gotten that snow. The folks that were up around Devil's Lake, because it felt like they got snow all the time this winter, they were glad to have probably a lot less than the majority of us. That 15 inches I saw, that was down around Linton. I think there might have been some heavier stuff as you move towards maybe Ellendale, etc. But it won't take long. This is actually kind of nice that if it melts off, it refills some stock dams that people really wouldn't be upset if those took on a little extra water for the time being as well. We'd be happy to see that.
Does this push anything back at all? I mean, it's early, Bridgette, but does this push
It's
anything
early.
back? Or
It's
it's
early.
just too early? Okay.
You tell me we get 3 inches of rain on May 1st, that's going to be a different story. But for the moment, I don't think this is too early yet. Um, and in fact, I had a couple of agronomists over the weekend say, well, actually, this slows things down and lets everybody get caught up for a little bit too. So we've already got wheat being planted in various places in the region. If you go into Montana, certainly as you go further south, you're already seeing a number of states that are seeing planting anhydrous ammonia being put down, et cetera. So it feels a little bit early in some instances, but then again, you have states with double cropping, so it's a good move for them to get going. Cattle producers would really like it to dry out right now. This is a mess, and it is tough to get to cattle. It's tough to get cattle fed. If you have calving going on, that becomes very difficult. Slogging through the mud, having new baby calves and mamas in mud. So a lot of cattle get moved inside or to higher ground whenever they can. Just try to take what you can get in those situations, I think you might say. So we'll see how they go, how they do. Also, Cass County Farm Bureau, they sponsor our Assistant Ag Director program. Every month we have an Assistant Ag Director. Join us on air if you're interested in being one of our ag directors. We'd love to have you. Go ahead and send me those emails, ag@flagfamily.com. I wouldn't mind taking a look at those and finding a time that might work for you to join us as part of the on-air group to talk to guests and also to develop questions that go along with our headlines each and every day. So let us know if that's an interest for you. Again, Cass County Farm Bureau supporting our ag education and so many other pillars that they have right here in this region. But the education and the communication skills from those students are vastly important. Speaking of communication, time for a little bit more, and that would be the livestock report from the American Ag Network. We'll pick that up next, and when we return, we'll be talking with Blake Sunday of Landmark Companies, The Drainage Difference. Thanks for joining us today for the landmark difference, the drainage difference with Landmark Companies. Blake Sunday is joining us in studio today. Blake's with Landmark Company. And okay, so Blake, I sort of alluded to this as we were talking. We got a lot of snow, but with any luck, all of this goes into the ground. It doesn't run off very well, or doesn't run off into the ditches and run away. Would drain tile make a difference for folks right now as to how much that ground would thaw and how much we would take in versus what would run off and into the ditches? Any thoughts on that for people listening?
Yeah, I think we're a little early for that, Bridget. Like Dean was
Okay.
talking about with the frost, I mean, it's going to go down to the frost and it's basically going to stop. So, but the moisture will help push the frost out. So that is a really good thing for us.
I'm very happy that that's going to be the case, actually. But if this had happened later in the year, because it's not unusual that we can have an April 20th snowstorm, having drain tile would really help us to dry our fields out a bit faster, correct?
Absolutely. At that point in time, when the water can percolate through the soil and get down to that tile, once the ground can't hold anymore, yeah, then get it off there and get that top grade off so we can get the tractors on it.
Gets you in the field just a little bit faster, which hopefully leads us to a longer growing season for most folks.
Yep, exactly. A lot of times we hear, like on an average, typically like 2 weeks is what guys a lot of times say that they get in 2 weeks sooner than their field down the road that's not tiled.
Can having drain tile help you reduce your soil compaction? That's a word that we hear a lot about these days. Folks are very concerned that their plant roots can't spread out the way that they should, that they have to try to break through a compaction layer. What does tiling do for us?
Well, that's going to help in the fact that you're going to remove that moisture better, and then you're not putting equipment on top of saturated soil. And anytime you got saturated soil, compaction goes way up, right? So I think that's probably your biggest benefit as far as compaction would go.
I like to see those roots spread out. I like to see even if things dry out, that just makes them, bust through that compaction layer and hard pans, etc., and gives an opportunity for those plants to even be under a little bit of stress, which isn't always so bad. Um, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, you want them roots going down to try and get water all the time, right? You don't want them going down
Yeah,
just a little ways, getting water, and then going sideways. We want the deeper root depth anytime we can get it.
so much better standability for the plant, right? They don't knock down in windstorms, etc.
Exactly. And then when it dries out, people got to remember, say it's a foot deeper roots, it's going to have moisture for a lot longer than the plant that's got a foot shallower roots. So it's going to benefit you when it does really dry out too.
So I had someone ask me this question here within the last couple of weeks, and that was with if let's think about corn for instance, because they have a pretty expanding root system underground. Can they actually like tree roots can interfere with sewer lines and homes and so forth? Can corn roots interfere with drain tile and cause any disturbances in that regard?
I haven't seen corn roots specifically. It's been a long time, but I've seen some sugar beet roots. I don't know if you've seen how small the very tip of a sugar beet, and that can go feet down. So I've seen those get in there, and it's kind of crazy because it's going in there for one reason. There's water, and but I haven't specifically seen corn that I'm aware of, I guess.
Well, I think it's always great when listeners ask us a lot of questions because they're curious, right? It means that they're listening and they're hearing the things that you say. So it's even more fun when they want to push that a little bit further.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one thing I'd like to mention, when you talk about all this moisture moving through the soil,
Yeah.
one of the biggest benefits of drain tile is an acidic soil or alkaline soil, the white spots in your field. When that water is moving through the soil in a tiled field, it's carrying those acids, those alkalis, the things that really hinder your yield. It's carrying those through the soil into your system and pumping them out or flowing them out and getting them off your field. So over time, that spot that wouldn't grow anything now all of a sudden will grow just like the rest of your field.
So walk through this with me and see if I'm on the right track. My agronomist mind thinks about weed seed, like water hemp, right? That easily floats and moves along with water. So if you have heavy downpours, you have erosion, those mature seeds can float to the edge of the field, they can move on downstream. With drain tile, because you wouldn't have the ponding water, you wouldn't have the water moving off in an erosion situation, could you keep down weed infestations, so to speak?
Yeah,
Am I
I mean,
stretching it?
yeah, you may be stretching a little bit, but it depends, right?
Okay.
Like if we get a 3-inch rainfall one night, your tile system's not gonna it's not gonna start running until probably 24 hours later. So whatever's gonna run off that field in that situation is gonna run off obviously until it soaks it in, obviously.
Okay, that makes sense.
But
Now, when we talk about how expensive fertilizer is right now, and we can have this conversation every other spring if you'd like, because the fertilizer price variability jumps around that much. When you think about drain tile and nutrient management, what things come to mind for you?
I mean, back to your point of your seed roots floating down the screen. Same thing with your fertilizer, right? If you got a bunch
Yep.
of water running off your field, versus it soaking it in, you're going to see that same thing, fertilizer loss, just like your example of your seeds. So and to say that your drain tile system, it's going to take more water, I guess, unless it's been just raining constantly. But typically, it's going to soak in more water than a non-tiled field because it's ready
Sure.
for it. So if that takes your fertilizer and keeps it in the soil, whatever it could soak in and the rest runs off, it's going to help at the end of the day.
Yeah, your plants aren't sitting in ponded water where your fertilizer is kind of useless because the plants aren't able to do any uptake anyway at that point. So the drain tile is giving you the benefit of better efficiency for that plant because the water is moving away but leaving behind soil, nutrients, etc. that the plant needs.
Correct.
Now, Landmark does other things besides just drain tile. You guys, let's face it, if it's work being done in the ground, you can probably tackle it. What are some of the other things that folks could call you for?
Directional drilling is a big one that we do. We do on-grade bores. So, you got a tile system that needs to cross a water to get to a highway, I should say, to get to a good water outlet. And it needs to be on grade, obviously. It needs to flow water. We can bore in a pipe that will carry that system underneath the highway and then hook your tile system up on your side of the field. We also do, power, sewer, water, any type of directional drilling. And then around the FM area and surrounding communities, we got the construction roll-off division that does drain or construction dumpsters for big construction projects. We have smaller ones for home projects, stuff like that. And then probably the third thing would be anything that needs to be plowed. For the most part, we can plow it in. Like we've plowed in rural water lines. We've plowed in water lines for cattle farmers to water their cattle. Power, all of it. Natural gas, 6-inch natural gas. We've plowed that in.
So basically, it comes down to you guys need a hole dug of some sort. Landmark can figure out how to do it.
Yep, exactly.
When you were talking about directional drilling and so forth, and if you've got to get a line underneath a highway, etc., is there a permitting process for that? And can you help guide a landowner through that permitting process if the need should arise?
Absolutely. Yep. So there's for sure a permitting process. 99% of the time, whether it's at the county or state level, depending on the highway. But yeah, we deal with it all the time. So we can help them, walk them through the process. We're rail certified for like BNSF. So if we got to bore railroad tracks, we can do that. Lots of different things.
Well, let's put it this way. You're probably not completely booked for 2026, and folks should be giving you a call now. And how would you like them to do that?
Yeah, give us a call at the office at 218-284-2936. Our website at www.landmarkteams.com, and we'll get you in touch with the right people.
You are the right people, Blake. Thanks so much for stopping by to visit with us today. We appreciate the drainage difference with Landmark Companies.
Thank you.
Thanks, Blake. And when we come back, we'll hit on some ag topics. We'll recap some weather in terms of what's coming up, because we are getting into the wet or wetter part of the LRC cycle. What does that mean for the next few weeks? I'll have more on that, and Bridgette will have some ag topics when we come back.
So many times out there, folks think about the nostalgia of when they were young and what things look like and why they were so cool. One thing that might fall into that category, milk in glass bottles, and it's making a comeback. So, why did we start putting milk in glass bottles in the first place? Well, it was about sanitation. Because prior to that, milk was a bulk product. So you went to your favorite local dairy farm to get your milk in whatever you had handy, buckets, jugs, etc. Nobody said they were all cleaned out, and people really kept getting sick, especially kids. And so there became a better practice, and that was putting milk even into just regular canning jars to start because they were glass and could be washed. And then that continued. When dairies and dealers started to see the value of using the glass, they certainly saw it catch on. And initially, people were concerned that, especially if you're a bottler, that all your bottles would get broken. But it turned out that they would be back and forth between the dairy and the home about 22 times before they would get broken or cracked and chipped or misappropriated for other things, because sometimes it was just handy to have a glass milk bottle around. And it was very common for local creameries and dairies to have their bottles stamped with their logos, etc. Personally, I have a whole collection of glass bottles, from quarts and pints to even gallon size and half gallons. And I think a half gallon of milk in a glass bottle would be awfully heavy. Why did they stop using glass bottles? Because people realized, once again, sanitation might be an issue. And if you have empty bottles riding in the same truck or wagon where you had glass bottles, there was the possibility of bacteria and contamination from the dirty bottles to the clean ones. So it kind of went away. Plus, plastic and paper got cheap, so people started using them. The downside to the plastic and paper, it's very porous, and so milk would start taking on the taste that may be in the plastic. And so now there's a resurgence in people wanting to go back to glass because they want that fresh taste. Additionally, they like the vintage looks of it. I know that seems strange that people are spending extra money on milk because it looked good, but we all eat with our eyes. You buy the prettier oranges because you didn't want the beat up ones. So it happens in every product in the grocery store. And a lot of, especially raw milk dairies, like to make sure that people can see the cream line, that difference between the cream and the heavy milk that's already in the jugs. So glass milk is coming back. We saw that taper off in about the late 60s, but do not be surprised as the demand is growing, especially in populated areas with large dairies like California. New Mexico has seen a resurgence in that. We very likely could start to see that spread across the U.S. and see more use of it for folks. And if you have some of those old glass milk bottles hanging around your house, maybe you have a treasure trove. Somebody might need those back. You just never know.
Price difference on that, Bridgette? Any
no idea yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. When you look at those markets in those larger urban areas, they didn't give me a price difference of what they're seeing, but my guess is, yeah, I have no doubt that if you expand that out over time, the price difference probably isn't that big a deal. If you had home delivery of it, that would probably put a bigger price difference in than the vessel that the milk is in.
Okay.
I mean, if you're willing to spring for the more expensive milk in the first place, you're probably not going to look too closely at the milk bottle
Right.
additional costs. But I don't know if the next question is, are you recycling them? Are there new bottles going out every time, or are you bringing them back somewhere? And what are the rules? Because we talked about sanitation being a concern.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see where that expands to. It was kind of a neat idea, though, to bring them back.
Interesting. So, well, let's quickly hit on weather. I was just taking a look at some of our extended models, and we're going to be getting into the stormier part of the LRC cycle over the next 2 weeks. We've got about 2 or 3 storms coming our way. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to get hit hard, but taking a look at our latest longer range guidance, and we're looking at an additional, just over the next 2 weeks, about 1 to 2 inches of liquid. Now, how much of that is going to fall in regards to snow? That's the big question. I think the majority of it's going to be rain, which obviously we'd much rather have. But yeah, the next couple of weeks we're going to see that trough in the Rockies, and that's good news for the Rockies and some of the the higher drought regions out in the western part of the U.S. They will receive some rain. Not enough, but hey, every little bit helps. So we'll be watching those storms coming out of the Rockies, but somewhere around the 13th through the 17th, and then another one around the 19th through the 22nd. A couple of potentially bigger storms coming our way, and I just don't think we're done with the snow yet. I hope I'm wrong, but with the pattern that's setting up, odds are we're probably not. Somewhere in the state is going to get hit with some heavier snow. I think it's going to favor areas out west, which is okay because those are the drier regions. But again, something we'll be keeping an eye on over the next couple of weeks. You got about 2 or 3 more storms, and then once that trough lifts out and we'll get that ridge to build back in, I think that's when we'll start to see some more consistent warmer temperatures. Although we will warm up. I mean, next weekend, or this coming weekend, I should say, we're going to be in the 50s to near 60 across the area. So we're starting to see more and more signs of spring, which we should as we head into April, a little deeper in April. But again, I just don't think we're quite done with the snow just yet.
And we'll be watching as folks are getting that equipment out of their sheds, getting ready to go for the spring planting season, and letting people know what we see happening. I think the majority of the state got snow of some sort, or some sort of wintry mix, if you will, in the last few days. So it's going to set us off a little bit. Normally, we think about Monday after Easter being a day that a lot of people are ready to go to the field. We're not quite there yet for everyone, and that's okay. Well, we'll get there in time. We always manage to plant a crop. As you are getting your equipment ready, though, don't forget about what you have to do to protect your cybersecurity as well. You could take a moment to go do your fence check assessment from Tech Support Farm and make sure that what you have is adequate coverage and you have the right passwords and so much more going on. You can go find them at techsupport.farm, take that fence check assessment, and if you are curious and have more questions, I do know that Chris Sherman would be happy to visit with you and see what he can do to help. You've maybe heard the adage before that if you've got livestock, you've got dead stock. So mortality is a fact of life when it comes to livestock. But maybe you don't realize that farmers actually have to be fairly responsible in the disposal of what happens with that livestock. You can actually compost dead animals. I know that just sounded awful, and some of you probably thought I was not saying something correctly, but I really am. NDSU's Extension has done some classes on this, and I've even attended one where if you put together the right bedding, and there's a certain pattern that you have to follow in order to make sure that you have the composting done correctly. Your first step is you're going to have 2 feet of base material. So you're going to pile up whether it is chopped straw, wood chips, something that can retain the heat, but then also allows some airflow underneath it. Then you're going to put your dead stock on top of that base. You need at least a foot of base material around the perimeter. Then cover that dead stock with 8 to 12 inches of bulking material. And then you cover the entire pile or long row with another 2 feet of cover material. And then after a certain amount of time, you actually go in and with a loader bucket and you will turn that pile so that things begin to compost just like you do composting in your yard for your garden, etc. That's pretty much how it works. There are some rules that go along with that. So there are approved disposal methods that include in North Dakota. So if you have dead stock, you can render the animals. You can find a rendering plant to send them to. There is incineration, burial, the composting I just talked about, and you can also do a landfill or controlled burn under special circumstances. Each option does have advantages and limitations depending on your location, animal size, the season of the year, and your available infrastructure. There are non-acceptable methods as well. Open burning is not acceptable. Just abandoning carcasses, disposing of animals in your inert landfills, such as landfills that are only taking branches and leaves, etc., or just feeding the coyotes. That's not an acceptable method. If you are a livestock operation that is a permitted operation, let's say you've got a confinement operation, you do have very strict rules with the Department of Environmental Quality from the state of North Dakota as to how you can dispose of those animals, and you need to follow those rules in that permitting process as well. So, interesting to note that, yes, if you have livestock, it does lead to dead stock. And what do you have to do for that in the future? Well, you've got to follow the rules. That's really what it comes down to. more headlines for me to come. I've got a few more things here on my desk that we want to talk about, and we'll do that when we return after this message.
And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. 1:49 in the afternoon. Temperature's a little chilly out there in the lower 20s. We're going to stay in the 20s to near 30 across the area today. Unseasonably cool. Normally we should be in the upper 40s this time of the year. And we're going to see those temperatures drop off into about the 10-degree range tonight and increasing clouds tomorrow. with temperatures a little closer to 40, and then we're in the 40s for Wednesday, Thursday. A little rain snow mix possible Wednesday morning, but not too worried about that. And then we'll warm it up as we head into the weekend with temperatures in the 50s and near 60. Could see some light rain coming in Sunday, but a better chance to start off early next week with rain. Possibly could see some snow next week as well, something we're keeping an eye on. A couple of systems coming out of the Rockies that are kind of ringing alarm bells. We'll see precip out of it. I think most of us will see rain, but again, there is a chance that we could see some more snow later next week. Something we're watching.
The ticks, flies, and flukes. They're on the mind of Minnesota beef producers. What are all those things? All right, so the Asian longhorn tick, that has become a concern as it's moved westward in the United States since about 2017. Recently, it just was found in Iowa. So this threat is a tick that is within the cells of cattle. The tick can carry and transmit a parasite. That parasite, oh my, that has a very long name, Filaria orientalis, which is a blood parasite that will cause a fatal anemia in beef animals. Studies have shown that the tick can cause a weakness, blood loss, and even death, according to USDA. So it's possible that the longhorn ticks create more burden on the animal as they tend to form clusters with multiple ticks attacking the animal at one time. Now, could cold temperatures have stopped the progression of that tick? Could that keep it from moving in further up from Iowa into Minnesota and then going up into the Dakotas? We're going to have to watch because we don't necessarily know quite enough about that research yet. Then you've got the New World screwworm, which is a parasitic fly. We've been talking about it for well over a year. The border with Mexico has been closed, so we are not bringing across live cattle with the potential of carrying the New World screwworm with any of that livestock. It's put some pressure on us domestically as far as our beef supply is concerned as well. With that New World screwworm, this is the fly that will lay her eggs in any type of a cut, scrape, or puncture wound on an animal. So even if you have newborn calves where they've just tied off the umbilical cord, you may have a newly vaccinated animal that may have a puncture wound. The fly will find that spot, will lay her eggs. As those larvae emerge, they will actually feed on the healthy flesh of the animal. Most times you have parasites that feed on the dead flesh, not in this case. This comes after the healthy flesh. And in 24 hours, they've seen this New World screwworm larvae actually kill an entire calf. So, treatment, there's hope for more. Right now, if you have to vaccinate, there is actually a topical spray that you can use that could prevent the fly from laying her eggs there. There are some pour-on treatments, but right now, we've also managed to not have that fly cross the border into the U.S. That we are aware of. That situation has to continue to be monitored pretty closely. And then there's a liver fluke. One more thing that's out there, and actually it's being seen more with northern Minnesota cattle producers. And it gets to be a problem in every continent around the world. Part of the reason that it's an issue in northern Minnesota is that the white-tailed deer are prevalent there, and they are part of the life cycle for that liver fluke. It's a kind of strange cycle. The fluke lives in ruminants. So its eggs exit through the feces. They hatch in water and find an intermediate host in a small, in a snail, which are then inadvertently ingested by the ruminants when they graze the vegetation. While the cycle continues through the deer, the flukes reach a dead end when they get to cattle. The flukes get into the cattle, they penetrate the intestinal wall, and then they migrate through to the liver where they cause minor to very severe liver damage on the animal. And that can lead to death or what's called red water disease that ultimately will kill those beef animals. So you can see that the liver fluke has become more and more of an issue in areas. They have concerns about testing water, looking for the fluke. But again, the hardest thing to overcome is that the deer are part of the life cycle and actually help to carry that liver fluke. And so you have a hard time trying to keep this stopped within the deer population. We've just been wrapping up a lot of the major times for bull sales around the region, selling a lot of bred heifers as well as bulls. And then there's always going to be semen on the move for AI and cattle as we get into our next cycle of calving. And this time I did mean artificial insemination. When we're talking about bull management, you've got to think about, you bought your bull. A lot of times bulls get tested before they come to you as the new owner. Testing a bull to make sure that their semen is viable is a conversation you will probably need to have a different day, because I'm not sure if James running the board today or Dean are quite ready for this discussion. It's not something you are maybe expecting. So we'll talk about that another day. Once we know that your bull is viable, it's time to get them delivered. Keep in mind that bringing new animals into your herd can also be a concern if you're worried about disease management. So make sure that they are healthy, have them checked over. Some folks even quarantine their bulls for a couple weeks to make sure everything is good before they move them in with the rest of their herd. And then watch their diet. When they first come in, they may have had to travel. There are some bulls that get bought in this region and ship all over the United States. They've spent some time on a truck or being loaded on and off trucks. When in case that happens, you've got to make sure that you have a sound diet plan for them to bring them right back up to a good body condition, making sure that they are getting plenty of water, that they have a diet that is compatible to their needs to keep them healthy. And of course, bulls are going to want to get out to pasture as soon as they can, but even that little bit of quarantine time can't possibly hurt. You're looking at a daily weight gain of 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds a day. That should be your target. And so bulls really need an access to good quality forage in order to be able to do that. And you're looking at about a 10% crude protein, and then a total digestible, a TDN, of their nutrients of about 60 to 70%. A lot of hay hopefully is coming this season, and that's going to be great for all of our cattle producers, because we've had a couple good years with hay crops. Everybody likes to make sure they stay stockpiled. And with the wildfires that have happened across Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, we want to also thank those folks who have taken part in shipping hay to cattle in those states where they needed it. If you would like to continue to be a part of that process where you can help ship wire, fence posts, and so much more, all you got to do is reach out to the livestock associations in any of those states. They would be really happy to take your assistance, whether it's with cash donations or other supplies. And there have been some hay convoys that have rolled down into those states as well. Been a big help with the dry weather that they've had and the heavy wind. Many of them are just really hoping that soon they manage to get some green grass to bring down their fire danger. It's been, well, frankly, it's been really dangerous for a lot of them. They haven't had anything good to talk about down there for a little while. Maybe that'll change around soon. We'll see. So, yeah, if you can conjure up some rain down there, I think there's a lot of guys who appreciate it.
And, not a whole lot in the forecast. It's going to be kind of dry
Not
around.
for them.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, could use a little bit more around here, especially as we head into more of a spring-like pattern, hopefully, but just not a whole lot coming up around the corner. So we'll see how it pans out here over the next couple of weeks. So still not seeing a whole lot, not a big stormy pattern heading our way.
Nope. And again, those guys to the south of us, they'd really like just a little bit of rainfall, and the sooner the better. But we'll keep an eye out for them as well, see what it turns into.
All right. Well, that'll do it for Bridgette, myself, for today's Weather and Ag in Focus. But don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show, it's coming up next.